We are now going to be looking at how our diseases are transmitted from one person to another. So, our learning intention for today is to be able to describe the different methods by which pathogens may be transmitted between our different hosts. So, in general, the different modes of transmission is direct contact with someone who's infected, such as through their blood, skin, mucous membranes, or bodily fluids. Airborne transmission, such as evaporative droplets or dust particles. Vectors, so these are living organisms that are infected and may bite us and we get it as well. So, mosquitoes, fleas, ticks are good examples. And finally, ingestion. So, if you're a little child and maybe you've thought it would be good to have a fistful of dirt in your mouth, you may have ingested a pathogen while doing so. So the first one being droplet infection. So as you can see from this lovely photo I have provided here, someone who is infected and you come across them due to their cough or their sneeze, and you have these little droplets that fly into the air and are filled with lots and millions of microorganisms, you may in fact catch it. So an example of a droplet infection could be influenza and the common cold. So, droplet infection, this is a funny one. It can either be classified as direct contact, right? If you've coughed into your mouth, you haven't washed your hands, and then you've gone and touched someone, or it could even be an airborne infection. So, if someone's sneezed and you've walked into it, ugh, disgusting, you may catch it that way as well. The other one is through bodily fluids. So, as you saw before, this was classified as a direct contact. Okay. So this could be pathogens that are inside the bloodstream or other fluid secretions such as urine, or even when you are actually having sexual intercourse with someone and they are excreting bodily fluids, you can actually also catch that from them as well. A good example of catching something from bodily fluids is AIDS. So many people who deal with explicit drugs and they're sharing needles from between one person to another, they are at risk of being able to get AIDS, which isn't very good because obviously um, this is a pathogen, or HIV really is the pathogen that is found in the bloodstream, which will then cause AIDS. Like I said, other direct forms of contact can be literally just shaking hands with someone who, again, has not properly sanitized or washed afterwards. So, thinking back to when COVID was really, really big, how we were always encouraging, people to wash their hands and sanitize and do the whole proper 60-second hand wash that you're meant to do when you go to the toilet and things like that, and that's to just really minimize the spread of microorganisms. So some things that can be directly contacted or transmitted due to direct contact is, of course, athlete's foot and genital herpes. So thinking if you're someone who has genital herpes and then you've gone and had sex with them and you've got the mushing of private parts, then yes, it can in fact get transferred to the other person that they are engaging in that sexual activity with. Not pleasant. Feces, that is a big one, particularly in third world countries or low income countries, where it might be a bit more common to maybe flush like sewage and things into the rivers, or just having people excrete directly into the rivers or nearby them. Once that water is contaminated, of course, there are many, many microorganisms that are found inside of feces. So imagine you're someone who's come along to just then drink water from the river, you are then at risk of contracting diseases such as cholera. And of course, contaminated food is a good example. So, if you're someone who is a bit more risky and decides to kind of eat food that might be a little bit too old, or another thing is that if food has taken too long to cool down below I think it's like below 5 degrees, is where it kind of stops, or halts bacterial growth, then you may be at risk of contracting something such as salmonella. So, salmonella is actually life threatening. Depending on your age and um, your mobility and things like that. So, with salmonella, it's usually the exotoxins, so the stuff that they're producing, that causes you to get really sick and have all of the very unpleasant symptoms of having salmonella. The other thing that we can cause us to contract our diseases from are animals. So in Africa, you might have heard of Ebola before, and that's what this image is. This is the image of the Ebola virus here, and this it was actually spread by bats in Africa. So, but of course, there are many other animals that can be carrying diseases. Dogs and cats are definitely one of them, but as well as bats and monkeys, and of course, people that actually work with animals, such as vets, zookeepers, and farmers, are a lot more at risk to contracting these diseases than others.